Harus dapat kamera. Harus dulu lanjut. Dia harus dulu. Lagi dulu ada cerita video sama orangnya. Bisa orang tadi kamu harus ada. Bisa. A black one, and that's when I found that green. And I connected to the Aston box. The voice says, "You get it, and I go, no, it is a yes." And he showed up, like, if you believe that, again, that's it.
Why?
Exactly.
I could move to the ledge sheet. You know where when the mouse map, the Ross one, the back, there's no damage on it. I think I've some movies, but I think they go up on something one. And this is quite next to it's between modern and old classics, you know, so it's quite interesting. It's just a natural tackle. Somebody 4 weeks. Sunday home and Gracias.